Hey, what's going on? Silas Haig here, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to set your rate. So whether that's per page, per word, per hour, per project, there's so many different ways to set your rate, and it can get a bit overwhelming. And if you get it wrong, you could be getting paid a lot less than what you deserve. So make sure to stick around and watch the whole thing. I'm going to weigh up all the different pros and cons of each method. And at the end, I'm going to tell you what I decided to do. So first, there's no definitive answer when it comes to how to set your rate. It depends on a lot of different factors. I'll go into some in more detail, but some of the main ones are the type of work, the turnaround time, how quickly you're getting it back to your client, the speed of which that you're actually proofreading, your experience in the field, and the size of the project, whether it's a small file or a large one. So there's a lot of different things to bear in mind there. Now, when you're getting started, there's a good guide on the Editorial Freelancers Association. So if you just search that, and that'll give you an idea about the fees, the general kind of fees that each different type of service provides. So you can have a look and get a bit more of an idea on there. Now, the info that I'm going to talk about is specific to proofreading, but these pros and cons I'm going to weigh up are actually about when it comes to charging per hour, per project, or per milestone. They can actually be considered for any type of service. One common way to charge is per hour. So someone asks you a rate and you tell them up front, this is how much I charge every hour. One of the main benefits is that you'll actually get paid for the amount of time that you spend on each project. So if you work for 4 hours on a job, you'll get paid for 4 hours. So that's pretty straightforward. And it's nice knowing how much you get. Another thing is that once you actually know your proofreading speed, like roughly how much you can read in an hour or so, you'll be able to plan each day much more easily. You can predict, okay, I've got this many pages, it'll take me this many hours, I'll get paid this much. It's quite nice to look at in that kind of broad day-to-day planning, and then you can fit your jobs around a bit more easily. Now, there are a few disadvantages with this method though. Number one is if you misjudge the time or underestimate or overestimate how long it'll take you, you might then end up either overcharging your client or undercharging them, which is much worse, but both are bad. So there's that to bear in mind. One of the main things I don't like about this rate method is that it kind of caps your earning potential. Like, you can always raise your rate in the future, but you still only have the same number of hours to work with each day. So yeah, and it's probably not as efficient. You probably won't work as efficiently as if you priced it another way. If you're working per project, for example, you might be like, okay, if I can complete this faster, I'll get paid more for my time. Whereas with that rate, you kind of, if you complete a job faster, there's not really that much incentive. So it can, some people might even start dragging out the amount of time that they spend on a project just to get paid a bit more, which is quite unethical, really. Also, when it comes to charging per hour, it can almost cloud your client's judgment, because the hourly rate is almost like a psychological hurdle your client has to get over. They've already got in their head a price they're willing to pay and like the value attached to that, how much they think it's worth, like as a reflection of the price. So it kind of comes down to the perception of value. It might make it easier to understand with a scenario. So take these two examples. Option one, you tell your client, this project will cost $200. Option two, you tell your client, this project will cost $200 and it will take me roughly 3 hours to do. Most clients will be much happier taking the first option. The countless hours that you spent learning and honing your craft and making your service more efficient often doesn't come into the perception of value like this. They'll actually perceive it as less valuable if it takes you less time. With option two, they kind of know, exactly how much they're paying you, and it might not even align with their perception of that value. And even at the end of the day, you might take 2 hours or you might take 10 hours. And that's kind of up to you and on your schedule, really. The other main way to get paid is either charge per word or per page. So, for every word or every 1,000 words, you have a certain rate, or for every page, you charge a certain rate. So one of the main advantages with this is that even before you start the work, you'll know exactly how much you get paid. So, you can look at a piece of work and be like, cool, this will pay me this much. Hopefully this is about how much time, and then you can kind of approximate how much time you should be spending on it to earn a decent hourly rate. It also almost gives you an incentive to improve your efficiency. Just make sure you're not, sacrificing that for lower quality work. So, you can look at a piece and be like, all right, usually it takes me this long, but I'm going to really try and train myself to read faster or offer the service faster without reducing the quality of my output. And then you kind of get paid as an incentive of that, paid more. Charging per word or per page is one of the most common ways to charge. So most clients will actually be quite familiar with that if they've paid for someone in a similar role before. So, it'll kind of might set them at ease, and everyone kind of knows where they stand with this type of method. The billing is a lot easier and more simple. They're not going to question you about how you spent each of your hours that you build them. You can both see from the start how much it's going to cost. It's just a bit more of an even playing field, I think, with this method. Some of the downsides to this method are that if you're working even between clients, with different clients, your speed might drop. Or even with different types of content, or even the similar types of content, your proofreading rate might drop. So sometimes it can be a bit harder to predict how long each piece of work is going to take you, and if it takes longer, then how much you paid will decrease as a result of that. So if you underestimate your speed, your rate will drop. So you just have to bear that in mind, and maybe even plan accordingly. Like if you can assess at the start of the project and be like, okay, this looks like a heavy or a piece of work, a really dense piece of work, or a really technical piece of work, and have that in your policies that if it's, that you can decide if it's really dense, then you can upcharge a bit more. And I'm sure most clients will understand. Another downside of this method is that, if you take on too many projects without thinking about how much time it'll take, you might end up with just not enough time, and maybe as a result turn in lower quality work or not get your work back to your clients on time. One of the disadvantages with the per page model rather than the per word model, you can probably guess at what I lean towards already. But one of the main disadvantages is that you have to enforce quite strict guidelines around the margins, the font size, the fonts, to make sure that all the pages are uniform. So you're charging for each one the same, and the client knows, how much each page costs. It adds in some extra questions like, how much do you charge if just a third of the word has text, or a fifth? Like, do you charge then, do you not? So it just can make the billing a little bit more messy and leave a few more unanswered questions that you might have to add in your policies at the start. So that's the main two methods. Now, alongside that, there's also a few other things to consider. So one of the main ones being the turnaround time. So you can charge more if your client wants it back sooner. You have to push things back in your schedule, rearrange things. It's actually a great way to get paid more, though, if you're willing to be flexible. So I like to offer really quick turnaround times if people want it, and then they just pay more. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Another thing is that if you're highly experienced, or if you can offer a particularly technical proofreading service, so say you can offer some medical proofreading or science-based proofreading or some form of technical proofreading, you can charge at a higher rate, because obviously there's less people that are offering that service, and you need some previous experience with that type of work. So finally, as well, the size of the project is also something to keep in mind. If it's a huge project, sometimes you can charge more. Sometimes you might want to even slash the rate down because your client is giving you a lot of work. On the other hand, if you're sent a small piece of work, you have to bear in mind that there is a bit of time that it takes to get everything set up and get ready and get into your proofreading mindset before you actually start working. So sometimes it's not even worth it for those tiny projects. So in the past, I've actually put a minimum word count. So when I was first deciding my rate, I spent a lot of time just weighing up the pros and cons of each. But as you might have already gleaned from what I've said in this video so far, I decided to go for the rate per word model. And the main reason for that being that it's just so much simpler and more straightforward. It's just easier when it comes to billing, and there's usually not any questions asked about how you spent your time or whatever. Everyone's on a level playing field and usually happy with the work and the rate that they have to pay. So remember, when deciding your rate, there's no real clear-cut answer, and just bear those things in mind. It depends on how you want to run it. It's all up to you, but just make sure you're actually getting paid what you're worth. Now, if you want to learn how to become a professional proofreader, you can get access to free comprehensive training that will teach you all the skills that you need to get started proofreading, how to actually find clients that pay you what you're worth, and a whole lot more. It's a whole comprehensive workshop training. It takes about an hour of your time. I'll leave the link in the description below here. In addition, if you go through that link and enroll in the training, you'll get a lot of my bonuses as well. So you get some of my exclusive bonuses, one of which, for the first 10 people, I will give you access to my rates and policies document. Now, this spent me ages to craft because, as I said, I'd spent a lot of research on working out the rate. So you'll be able to see the rate that I charge, all the rates that I charge, and you'll be able to see all the different policies and everything like that comes into place when you've got to get your proofreading business up and running. So you can model all that and save yourself a lot of time. In addition, one of my other bonuses is a series of video training. And there's a lot of info there about how to get paid and getting set up with invoicing and accounting and the free software that I use. So if you want those bonuses, just check the link out below and sign up for the free training as well. All right, I'll see you in the next video.